Max really did not want to shake the train in such heat, but his girlfriend Ira thought differently and decided to go to visit her parents this weekend. Crap. Well, what the heck do I need? To ride in a reserved seat for several hours, then to work like a damned one in your parents' garden? Yes, I'd rather play PS than go to their plantations, Max said with undisguised irritation. Come on. Pouted like a turkey. The whole winter is still ahead, you will still play enough in your prefix. And here we are, for 6 months we have not been to my parents. Ira objected and hit the bullseye with her phrase. The point was that they had indeed not been in her native village for a long time. Realizing that the bride outplayed him, Max trudged to his room and began to collect his backpack. It was decided to go late in the evening in order to arrive at their destination in the morning in the cold. At the same time, Max knew perfectly well that for the next 2 to 3 days, he would have to hunchback on the plantation of Ira's parents, digging potatoes, harvesting corn or collecting an unprecedented crop of apples. In the depths of his soul, Max consoled himself with the hope that the tickets for this flight would be sold out and they would have to stay at home. To the chagrin of the guy, prudent Ira bought tickets in advance and now he had no choice but to take things and go on a trip. In order not to drag their bags across the city to the railway station, young people spared no expense and called a taxi. The driver, a good-natured man of about 50, saw their bags and remarked, "So you want to go somewhere in such heat? Better to stay at home." They looked at the moon. "What else moon?" cautiously asked Maxim. "Well, what kind of moon? Big. Real. Today, for the first time in several hundred years, it will approach the Earth as close as possible," the taxi driver answered knowingly. "Ah, then it's understandable," Max said disappointedly. "I thought it would be something special." The driver did not argue with the guy who knew nothing about astronomy and drove the car in silence the rest of the way. Arriving at the station, Max and Ira quickly found the platform they needed and began to wait for the arrival of the train, which, apparently, was a little delayed. Despite the deepening twilight, a lot of people gathered on the platform, as usual. Someone met relatives or acquaintances, and someone, on the contrary, saw them off. Finally, the train arrived at the platform and, after the passengers got off, boarding began. Max was lucky, he got a seat by the window. From here, he could watch the night landscape, and enjoy the divine sounds of rock in his headphones, while away the time on the road. As planned, Ira took a seat next to him. Without waiting for the train to depart, she took a book with another horror movie out of her bag and started reading. Soon, the train jerked slightly and began to slowly pick up speed. At that moment, a strange trinity entered the car in which Maxim and Ira were traveling, a man and a woman, supporting an old man who was about 80 years old under the arms. The hands of the poor fellow were twisted by arthritis, and his eyes could hardly see anything because of the cataracts that had developed in them. His companions were about 30. With a cursory glance at the carriage, they chose their seats so that the old man sat between them. Then, they put something into the pocket of the conductor, which made her smile happily and quickly left the car. "Well, now you can relax," with a sense of accomplishment, the man drawled. "Yes, another 3 or 4 hours and we will be there," his companion answered. And only the old man sitting between them did not utter a word. From the side, he looked like a mummy, which, for some unknown reason, came to life and decided to ride the train at night. Max looked at the old man with disapproval and turned to the window. He could not understand why this strange couple decided to take the old man by train, not even thinking that he might not survive the trip. They had been driving for more than half an hour when Ira wanted to drink water. Pulling a bottle of soda from her bag, she greedily dropped to the neck. Sitting 3 meters away from her, the old man looked longingly at the bottle and, waiting for Ira to quench his thirst, croaked, "Honey, give me a sip of water, I'm so thirsty that there is no demolition. I'm ready to give my life for a glass of soda." Ira looked doubtfully at the old man, already wanted to hand him a bottle, as the man sitting with the old man pulled it back. "Thank you, girl. I don't think this is the best idea. Our grandfather is sick. You see, he's on a diet. He can't drink soda." Max looked at the old man's companions in surprise. "Some of them are strange. Diet. It can't. The old man of that, and look, the horses will move," the guy thought. As if to confirm Max's words, the old man began to cough so hysterically that the guy was already prepared to see his bloodied lungs on the floor. "Why are you like this with your grandfather? A sip of water won't make him any worse." "Well, do you want me to go to the conductor and bring water without gas?" Ira pleaded. But the man and woman accompanying the old man flatly refused her services. Moreover, they squeezed the old man even more tightly between themselves, which made his face turn pale, like that of a dead man. Another half an hour passed and the situation in the car was a little discharged. Outside the window came the full moon, which looked like a huge yellow disk. The old man sat silently and looked at one point. Max listened to the music and furtively watched the reflection of the Trinity on the carriage glass. Ira was absorbed in reading and did not notice anything around. The couple who accompanied the old man visibly relaxed, anticipating the imminent end of their trip. And then, when it seemed to everyone that the situation had normalized, the old man cleared his throat once again and turned to his companions. His voice was cracked and creaky, like a detuned violin in the hands of Pinocchio. "But I won't give you the apartment. Listen, I won't. I know that you are taking me to die. Maybe you will hand it over to a nursing home, or maybe drown it in a lake. It's not a problem for you. But you won't get an apartment." After the words of the old man, a tense pause hung in the car. The woman sitting next to the old man blushed deeply, and the man blinked his eyes in indignation, like a bull at the gates of a slaughterhouse. "So that's it, what? Are they black realtors? They want to take the apartment from the old man and redo the documents, sell it profitably. Here are the bastards." Maxim thought. The old man, meanwhile, made a new statement. Let me go. I still won't give you the apartment." The people in the car began to get agitated and looked with disapproval in the direction of the old man's companions. The man and woman were visibly nervous. It so happened that with his speech, the old man instantly aroused the sympathy of the majority of the passengers in the car. His companions, trying to justify themselves, began to repeat that this was not true, saying that grandfather was wandering and they did not need his apartment. But the seed of doubt had already been thrown and Max stopped believing this couple. Especially after they forbade him to drink water. After exchanging glances with Ira, Max realized that she also shared his opinion. "When we arrive at our destination, we will need to contact the police. Let them check and save the old man from suffering," the guy thought. In the depths of his soul, he was frightened by the oppressive atmosphere of the carriage, in which the threat was acutely felt. Max understood that this strange couple was obviously keeping something back. They drove for another half an hour, after which the man who accompanied the old man went to the vestibule to smoke. But as soon as the man got out of the car, the old man suddenly wheezed and, clutching his chest, collapsed to the floor. At the same moment, the body of the grandfather began to shake convulsions, which literally turned him inside out. The old man's mouth foamed profusely, mixed with saliva and blood, and his eyes sunk and shone with whites, like reduced billiard balls. "What about him? He urgently needs help." Ira started up and rushed to the old man. "No, don't touch him. He has a normal seizure. Now everything will pass," exclaimed the old man's companion and immediately looked around for a man. Maxim immediately realized that she was lying. It was clear that another minute, another and the old man would throw back his hooves right before his eyes. Meanwhile, Ira tried to bring the old man to his senses by slapping him on the cheeks and pouring water from a bottle. "Poor thing. Couldn't handle the heat, I guess. one of the passengers said sympathetically. The old man stubbornly did not want to come to his senses and, judging by the expression on his face, was in the stage of agony. Finally, his frail body twitched for the last time and stretched out like a string. At that moment, the man who had previously accompanied the old man returned to the car. Running up to him, he checked his pulse and, looking at his companion, shook his head negatively. "New here is, he died on your fault. You are not human. Worse than animals." Ira exclaimed with tears in her eyes. Her exclamation only further embittered the passengers, who pushed the old man's companions deep into the car. Soon, the conductor came running to the noise. Seeing that the situation was taking a bad turn, she tried to reason with the angry crowd. But it turned out to be very difficult to calm the people outraged by the death of the old man. They were ready to tear his companions apart with their bare hands. And when it seemed that there was no way out, Max turned his gaze to the place where the body of the deceased had just been lying and almost fainted from shock. And the point was that the corpse of the old man disappeared in the most incomprehensible way. "Where is he? Where is the old man?" Max exclaimed. The passengers looked around in surprise. Then Ira looked up and screamed piercingly. But the fact was that the old man hung on top of the car, like a huge four-toed spider. "Everyone disperse," the old man's companion yelled and pulled out a pistol hidden in a holster under his jacket. The woman immediately followed his example and aimed the barrel at a terrible creature in the guise of a grandfather. The old man, with enviable agility, crawled along the ceiling, as if glued. Then, he jumped to the floor and hissed angrily. It was only now that the passengers noticed that his mouth was full of razor-sharp teeth. The fingers of his hands stretched out, and began to resemble meat hooks. Closest to him was the conductor, whom the damned old man grabbed at the throat, tearing out an impressive piece of flesh from her neck. Choking with blood, the woman began to kick and twitch, trying to push this creature away from her. The man fired, but the bullet either missed or didn't hurt the old man at all. After tasting the blood, he immediately changed. His flabby body was filled with strength, and the muscles of his hands twisted the ropes of tendons and muscles. Human flesh worked real miracles with the old man, turning him into an evil nocturnal predator. At that moment, a woman fired, but the bullet again missed and smacked into the wall with relish. It seemed to Max, who was in a state of shock, that the old man could not be killed at all. After the shots and the murder of the conductor, panic began in the car. Pushing each other away, the passengers rushed to the exit, which for some unknown reason was blocked. There was a stampede that only helped the vile creature in the form of an old man that selectively tore to pieces those who liked her. The old man tore off his head, and someone gutted alive, scattering bloody entrails throughout the car. The man and woman, who seemed to Max policemen, continued to shoot, but the bullets still did not cause any harm to the creature. The car was in total chaos. The creature in the form of an old man became stronger and stronger, without ceasing to fill everything around him with human blood. Maxim tried to find Ira with his eyes, but it was almost impossible to distinguish anything in this hellish meat grinder. And then, the light went out in the car, which is why the surviving passengers began to yell loudly and rush from side to side. Everything around was covered in blood, and no matter how much Max tried, he could not find his girlfriend. Shots were fired from time to time, but they were unlikely to reach their goal, hitting innocent people. A creature in the guise of an old man tore everyone in a row, and near the door of the car there was already a whole mountain of corpses. At some point, Max saw Ira, whom the old man knocked over on the blood-stained floor and tried to reach her throat. "Leave it, the creature. Leave, listen," shouted the guy, making his way to the bastard through the mountains of corpses. And when Max finally succeeded, the old man was already greedily quenching his thirst with the blood of his girlfriend. The guy rushed at the bastard with his bare hands, realizing that he would die here and now. The creature instinctively dodged and struck Max with a powerful blow to the head area. Losing consciousness, the guy realized that it was all over and the bloodthirsty old man had won. Half an hour later, the train slowed down and, with a creak of brakes, stopped at some provincial station. Dawn was timidly rising outside the window, and the night, with obvious reluctance, began to give up its positions. As it turned out, the arrival of the train was already expected. Several dozen soldiers of the special forces quickly took the territory of the station into a ring. Then, the leaders of the operation approached the blood-stained train and shook their heads sadly. "Here's Big Moon for you, Colonel. I expected something similar. We do not yet know exactly how the moon affects the human psyche. But when it came close to the Earth for the first time in several hundred years, nothing good could be expected. The archives contain stories that during periods of a sharp reduction in the distance between the moon and our planet, inexplicable outbreaks of aggression occurred in many regions of the Earth. People were haunted by obsessive hallucinations associated with murder and torture. This is a temporary insanity that passes after the moon returns to its usual position in the sky," the elderly general noted. "You want to say that the passengers of the train became victims of a natural anomaly and simply began to kill each other?" Stammering at every word, asked the colonel. "That's exactly what I want to say. You can be sure. The train incident is not unique. Of course, all this will be classified and people will never know the truth," straightening his cap, the general answered. From the realization of the terrible truth, the colonel's legs buckled. A few meters from him stood a train, from the carriages of which blood flowed, covering the rails and the platform with terrible crimson spots. Only by a lucky chance, the engineer managed to stop the train at the nearest station. By this point, most of the passengers on the train were already dead. Overwhelmed by obsessive hallucinations, people went berserk, cut and tore each other to pieces. Each of them, suffering from the harmful effects of the moon, saw only his own vision and fought with only an understandable enemy. Only a few dozen passengers on the train managed to survive. Among them was Maxim, whom the military, who were inspecting the wagons, found near the body of his girlfriend. The guy squeezed Ira's neck with a death grip and did not even understand what he had done. Of course, after everything he had experienced, he was waiting for long months of treatment in a psychiatric hospital, in which his memory would be erased, and his brain would soften to a state of jelly. But this will be later, but for now Maxim believed that he could survive in a fight with a nightmarish old man.